Imagine a darkness so profound it consumes not just bodies, but the very fabric of sanity. Richard Ramirez, the Night Stalker, terrorized California, leaving behind a trail of unimaginable horror. But beyond the gruesome acts, what twisted, psychological landscape fueled his monstrous deeds? What primordial shadows danced within his mind? Prepare to descend into the abyss of the human psyche as we explore, through the incisive wisdom of Carl Jung, the terrifying enigma of Richard Ramirez. This is not just a story. It's an exploration of the darkness that lurks within us all. Before we delve deeper into this chilling analysis, make sure to subscribe to the channel, leave a like if you find this exploration thought-provoking, and share this video with anyone who dares to confront the darker aspects of the human mind. Hit that notification bell so you don't miss future journeys into the uncharted territories of psychology. Trust me, the revelations we uncover today might just change how you perceive the shadows within yourself and the world around you. Now, let's begin our Jungian descent into the mind of the Night Stalker. Carl Jung, the visionary Swiss psychiatrist, peered beneath the surface of conscious behavior, venturing into the vast and often terrifying landscape of the unconscious. For Jung, the psyche was not merely a repository of repressed desires, but a dynamic and multifaceted realm populated by archetypes, universal patterns of behavior and imagery that reside within the collective unconscious, that shared reservoir of human experience passed down through generations. To understand Richard Ramirez through a Jungian lens, we must first confront the archetype of the shadow. The shadow, in Jungian psychology, embodies the repressed, denied, and socially unacceptable aspects of ourselves. It is the dark twin that we often refuse to acknowledge, projecting it onto others. In the case of Ramirez, the shadow appears to have not only broken free, but to have completely consumed the conscious ego. His acts of violence, the utter disregard for human life, could be interpreted as the unrestrained eruption of a monstrous shadow, untamed by societal norms or empathy. Furthermore, Jung spoke of the persona, the mask we present to the world, the social role we adopt. The more rigidly we cling to our persona, the more powerful and potentially destructive our shadow can become. Could Ramirez have presented a superficial facade, a veneer of normalcy that concealed a seething cauldron of repressed rage and destructive urges? His ability to blend into society, to appear unremarkable between his horrific acts, suggests a stark disconnect between his outward presentation and his inner reality. This rigid adherence to a fragile persona might have fueled the shadow's eventual violent rebellion. The archetype of the trickster also warrants consideration. The trickster embodies chaos, amorality, and a delight in disrupting the established order. While not a perfect fit, Ramirez's seemingly random acts of violence, his taunting of the authorities, and his unsettling courtroom demeanor could be seen as echoes of this archetype's disruptive energy, twisted and perverted through the lens of his deeply disturbed psyche. The collective unconscious, Jung believed, holds the accumulated wisdom and primal fears of humanity. When the boundaries between the conscious and unconscious mind become dangerously porous, as they appear to have been in Ramirez, these archaic forces can erupt with devastating consequences. Beyond the shadow and persona, Jung's concept of projection offers another crucial insight into the Ramirez phenomenon. Projection is the unconscious act of attributing our own unacceptable thoughts, feelings, and impulses onto others. Instead of confronting the darkness within ourselves, we see it reflected in the world around us, often leading to judgment and hostility. Could Ramirez have been projecting his own inner demons, his own feelings of worthlessness and rage, onto his victims? His seemingly random selection of targets spanning different ages and demographics, might suggest a generalized hatred, a projection of an internal void onto the external world. He wasn't just attacking individuals, he was seemingly lashing out at an internal tormentor reflected in the faces of his victims. The concept of individuation, a central tenet of Jungian psychology, also becomes tragically relevant in understanding Ramirez. Individuation is the lifelong process of integrating the various aspects of the psyche, including the conscious and unconscious, the masculine and feminine, anima, animus, and the shadow, in order to achieve wholeness and psychological maturity. For individuation to occur, one must confront and integrate the shadow, not repress or act it out. Ramirez's trajectory appears to be a catastrophic failure of individuation, a descent into the unchecked power of the shadow, unmediated by the conscious ego or the integrating force of the self, the archetype of wholeness. Instead of integrating his inner darkness, he became its vessel. The symbolism inherent in Ramirez's crimes also resonates with Jungian thought. Jung believed that symbols are the language of the unconscious, offering glimpses into the deeper layers of the psyche. The nature of his violence, the violation of the sanctity of the home, the element of fear and vulnerability he instilled, these acts can be seen as symbolic expressions of profound psychological disturbances. The home, often a symbol of the self and inner security, became a site of terror, reflecting perhaps a fundamental lack of inner peace and security within Ramirez himself. His actions could be interpreted as a desperate, albeit horrific, attempt to exert control over a world that felt chaotic and threatening to his fragmented psyche. Furthermore, the fascination with death that often accompanies such individuals aligns with certain aspects of the shadow archetype and the potential for thanatos, the death drive, to overwhelm eros, the life drive. Jung recognized the inherent duality within the human psyche, the constant tension between opposing forces. In Ramirez, this duality appears to have been tragically unbalanced, with the forces of destruction gaining dominance. The unconscious, collective, as Jung theorized, holds the accumulated experiences of humanity, including primal fears and archetypal patterns. Certain symbols and themes resonate across cultures and throughout history, reflecting these deep-seated aspects of the human psyche. The fear of the intruder, the violation of the domestic sphere, the sense of helplessness in the face of overwhelming darkness, these are archetypal themes that tap into our most fundamental anxieties. Ramirez's actions, therefore, might not only reflect his individual pathology, but also tap into these collective fears, amplifying the terror he instilled. He became a living embodiment of the boogeyman, a figure emerging from the shadows of the collective unconscious. Jung also explored the concept of psychological inflation, a state where the ego identifies too strongly with an archetype, leading to a sense of grandiosity and a loss of touch with reality. Could Ramirez have experienced a form of shadow inflation, where his ego became fused with the destructive power of his unconscious darkness? This inflated sense of self, fueled by the unchecked shadow, might have contributed to his feeling of invincibility and his blatant disregard for the consequences of his actions. The normal boundaries of empathy and morality, governed by a balanced ego, would have been overwhelmed by this archetypal identification. The process of individuation also involves confronting the anima in men or animus in women, the contrasexual aspects of the psyche. Integration of these aspects leads to a more balanced and whole personality. A failure to integrate the anima in a male can manifest as a difficulty in relating to the feminine principle, potentially leading to distorted perceptions and objectification of women. While a direct analysis of Ramirez's relationships is limited here, the nature of his crimes, particularly the sexual violence involved, could be speculatively linked to a deeply wounded or unintegrated anima, leading to a projection of his inner conflicts onto his female victims. The illusion of normalcy is another critical point. Society often operates under a shared agreement of what constitutes normal behavior, often unconsciously repressing or denying the darker aspects of human nature. Individuals like Ramirez shatter this illusion, forcing us to confront the potential for extreme darkness that can exist within the human psyche. Jung's work compels us to acknowledge the shadow, both individually and collectively, rather than pretending it doesn't exist. By understanding the dynamics of the unconscious, we might gain a greater awareness of the potential for its destructive forces to manifest when left unacknowledged and unintegrated. In the light of contemporary collective psyche, Jung might view the Ramirez phenomenon as a stark reminder of the ever-present potential for the shadow to erupt, especially in a society grappling with its own collective anxieties and unresolved traumas. The media's fascination with such figures, while often sensationalizing, can also be seen as a manifestation of our collective confrontation with the darker aspects of ourselves, a shadowy reflection of our own potential for destruction and the fragility of our societal structures. The fear and revulsion Ramirez evoked speak to a deep-seated unease within the collective unconscious, a primal fear of the predator lurking in the darkness. Jung might also point to the dangers of societal fragmentation and the lack of meaningful rituals or structures that traditionally helped individuals integrate their shadow aspects. In a modern world often characterized by alienation and a focus on the superficial, the pathways for confronting and integrating the unconscious can become obscured, potentially leading to a greater risk of the shadow taking hold in destructive ways. The breakdown of community and traditional values can leave individuals adrift, more vulnerable to the unchecked impulses of the unconscious. Furthermore, the pervasive influence of violence in media and entertainment, while complex, could be seen through a Jungian lens as both a reflection of and a potential catalyst for the activation of dark archetypes within the collective unconscious. While not a direct cause, the constant exposure to violence might desensitize individuals and normalize the acting out of aggressive impulses, particularly in those with already fragile psychological boundaries. Ultimately, from a Jungian perspective, Richard Ramirez represents a tragic and extreme manifestation of the universal struggle with the shadow. His story serves as a chilling cautionary tale about the potential consequences of a failure to engage with the depths of the human psyche, both individually and collectively. It underscores the importance of self-awareness, the integration of our darker aspects, and the need for societal structures that support psychological wholeness. Ramirez's horrific acts force us to confront the uncomfortable truth that the potential for darkness resides within the human psyche, and only through understanding and integrating this reality can we hope to mitigate its destructive power. His legacy remains a disturbing testament to the enduring power of the unconscious and the vital importance of the journey towards individuation, lest the shadow consume us entirely.